What's up, people? It's me again, OG Soda Pop Kid again, with another tutorial again. I told you in the last video this was going to be a two-part thing. I just haven't had time to get down here because I've been busy. This is part 2 to trial and error. And it's about tweaking, and it's about specifically this alternator bracket and this setup that was done in 2018, and what I went through with this and dealing with auto parts stores. Okay? All right, like I told you in the last video, over a 24-year period, I've spent $125,414.10 in auto parts stores, and some of it which, get mechanic work done, but I had to buy the parts in the auto parts stores to get the mechanic work done as well. Okay? And I did explain to you guys that, I keep receipts for everything because I'm self-employed, and with auto parts stores, I got envelopes full of receipts from Advanced Auto Parts, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Napa, and Summit Racing. And that Advanced Auto Parts got their own envelopes since 1998. And the rest of them is all in one envelope. The other ones share an envelope. Okay? And I've added up all of the years and all the money I spent on auto parts. I was in the last segment of this. Okay, in this segment, this is how I'm going to start this out. So you all know when it comes to insurance companies, okay, health insurance, auto insurance, everything's fine and dandy when they're taking our money, when we're paying them every month for years, and we may never get into a car accident. So all they're doing is getting rich for years. We may go 10, 15 years or longer and never be in an accident. And they're like, oh man, you got a perfect driving record, yada, yada, yada. And they never have to pay out, and they just get rich off of us. Okay, health insurance, the same thing. They're hoping, it's like a gamble. We're gambling. Okay, that we never get hurt and never have to use the health insurance, or we might get our teeth cleaned and use that part, or may get a yearly checkup, which is a physical, and that's it. And we never need them, and they just get rich off of us. Okay, so y'all know what I'm talking about. Well, that's the example I'm using for these auto parts stores, man. As long as they're getting our money continually. Now, Advanced Auto Parts, it's like that $125,000 that was spent over the last 24 years on auto parts and all of that. So that equals up to like $5,000 a year being spent on parts and trial and error and modification parts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I remember one time I didn't spend that much money one year at Advanced Auto Parts, and the manager was like, wow, man, was kind of upset that I didn't have to spend no money because I wasn't modifying anything and nothing was going on with my car. And I was like, you're actually feeling some type of way because I'm not dumping $5,000 a year into y'all's auto parts store? But then when it comes time for parts to go back that didn't fit, didn't work, or they're defective, then it becomes a problem when you're bringing parts back that don't work. But, it's fine and dandy when they're taking your money and getting rich off of you. Okay, well, that's my explanation for what I'm about to tell you. Okay? So like I said, for years I've been going to Advanced Auto Parts since 1998, and AutoZone, every now and then if Advanced didn't have a certain part, or Napa, you know what I mean? This serpentine belt setup. Now, I'm going to say this. For us car audio guys and us, guys that like classic cars, and you race car guys, especially race car guys, and us car audio guys as well, we all know that there's this thing called tweaking. tweaking. First is trial and error to make sure like belts and pulleys fit, and they fit tight, and they fit right, and they don't jump off or they don't shred. Like I was going through with this setup, okay, since 2018. Now, I already know that there's going to be tweaking, and there's going to be trial and error, and I have to find the right size belt and the right size pulley. You know what I mean? Because I went through it with this setup for a while. Belts flying off, belt shredding, okay? And this thing called tweaking. Well, you all know that when you get these Edelbrock carburetors or these aftermarket carburetors or Holley carburetors, you got to test and tune and tweak to get it to run smooth and start up good and idle right and accelerate right. And you have to fine tune it and change metering rods and change, you know, the accelerator pump and stuff like that to get it to run right, or a transmission. Or you race car guys, when you build an engine, you got to tweak it, you know, to get it to get that extra speed in a quarter mile. And you're going to be forever tweaking. You know what I mean? Forever pulling it out, forever changing it, forever trying to get it to run just the way you want it to run. It's tweaking, and that costs money. And you would expect these auto parts stores to be patient with you, knowing that you're working on a project, or you race, or you got an engine in there with special parts and stuff on it. Okay? So, Advanced Auto Parts, when they first came around, all right, and everything was stock in this vehicle with a 307 motor, like I told you. And the first thing I started changed, okay, was a distributor. It went from a computerized distributor. Remember, this is a 1984. So it went from a computerized distributor to, I wanted it to be like a 70s vehicle. And I got a 1975 HEI distributor dropped in, and then I changed the carburetor to an aftermarket. And I was having issues with the carburetor. Well, not really issues, but I didn't understand these aftermarket carburetors at the time, and how to set those electric chokes right there. I didn't know, you know what I mean? I didn't understand them, and what was happening was, you know, even in the summertime, once the car was warmed up and you drove it somewhere, and that you would get out of it for an hour and then get back in it, the choke sometimes would act as if the car was never warmed up, because the choke itself would cool down and then it would close again. And I didn't understand why I was doing that. Okay, and I was returning carburetors to Advanced Auto Parts. And after a while, it became a little issue with them that I was returning them, and when they sent them back and they checked them, nothing was the matter with the carburetor actually, and they was concerned about why I was doing that. Okay, and it got to the point that where one of the managers that used to work there, her name was Debbie, she was like, well, they're concerned about why you're bringing back carburetors. Now, they might have lied to me and told me, well, you're restricted from buying carburetors for a year. Okay, and then I was like, well, but they didn't know how to set the carburetors. They just sold the parts. They knew nothing about the carburetors. They was like, well, you might want to go to a speed shop. I was like, well, why are y'all selling this stuff and y'all don't know anything about it? You just sell them. So what happened is I did end up dealing with a speed shop. They showed me what to do to get rid of that problem. Okay, now I can rebuild those carburetors damn near with my eyes closed, man. So now I know a lot about these Edelbrocks now, and how to fine tune them and all of that. But that took some time to tweak and learn and tweak. You know what I mean? And them not being patient enough to, but you know, there was other auto parts, so I could go to another Advance and buy a carburetor, or I could go to AutoZone and do it, or I could just order one from Summit Racing. Now I remember Summit Racing, I was talking to one of their techs, and they explained to me, they was like, well, the difference between us and these auto parts stores like O'Reilly's and AutoZone and Advanced Auto Parts is, you know, carburetors will sit on their shelf there sometimes for over a year or so. And it was like, and when that happens, sometimes the inner parts, especially the rubber parts, will dry rot. And they'll dry out. And by the time you buy the carburetor, something is the matter with it because it sat so long. It was like the difference is carburetors don't sit on our shelves long at all. They're on the shelves and they're sold. You would rather buy one from us than the auto parts stores anyway. Okay, because sometimes I bought carburetors and there might have been a slight problem with how it was running. Okay, and this shouldn't be like that off the shelf. You should be able to tune it a little bit unless you have a modified engine. You know what I mean? With a big cam and all that in it. That's a different story. Okay, so, but I made it through that phase, through that returning carburetors phase. If something really is the matter with the carburetor nowadays, then I'll return it and just exchange it. Okay, so that was that issue. You know, other than parts going back every now and then that was defected or was not needed because it was the wrong part, or you thought something was wrong with something and it wasn't. Okay, I remember falling out with a that little issue became a joke over the years. You know what I mean? Years that went by, and every time a new manager or a new clerk started working there, she would be like, watch it, because I used to go down there and hang out during the summer. Whenever I go on my base runs, I would stop down at Vance and hang out with the clerks. So over the years, clerks that came and went. Managers came and went, and I was cool with most of them, and would go down there and hang out. But that became a joke. You know, every time a new manager or clerk came in, she would say, watch it. He might buy a carburetor and return it. And it became a joke. And then the joke wasn't funny anymore. Because some of them managers or clerks, instead of realizing it was a joke, they took it to heart. And so anytime I returned anything, they would be like, yeah, I heard you like to return. I was like, man, listen, that was years ago. And it was carburetors. I was like, and anything I return now, something's wrong with it or it's not needed. And I hardly return anything at all. So some of them would try to use that against me and I would flip on them. You know what I mean? I wasn't bringing stuff back much at all until this happened. Now with belt shredding and belts jumping off, and I spent years putting spacers in between it to space them out to make sure everything was lined up. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was easier to line up eyeballing than it was with this thing here. That the guys that did my bracket, Artius Reynolds and Scott Lott, well, Artius, he was worshipping this angle tool. Oh man, get an angle tool and make sure they're all set at the same degree. So I had everything at 90 degrees and belts and stuff still was jumping off. So that didn't mean anything. I spent hours, and I mean hours and years, eyeballing. Spacing out pulleys and making sure they was all spaced out and they're all lined up and everything's straight. You know how long it took me to do that? And I ended up getting 10 groove pulleys on the alternators. My fault, 8 groove. 8 groove alternators on the alternators. You know, if I had to space it out an extra tooth, I could. You know what I mean? But that took tweaking. You know what I mean? And now it's cool. Now this belt right here has been on there a year and a half. It's been on there since August of 2021. Okay, and granted, there was a couple different configurations that this can be wrapped in, an S configuration or a Z configuration. And between the two, the belt gets a lot smaller from S to Z. Just by wrapping it in 2 different configurations. It goes from a 1251, a K06 1251 to a K06 1120. See the difference? It drops down that many inches. You see where I'm at? Okay. And it took several belts. You know, I'm going and ordering belts and I didn't know which sizes to get. And I made, like I said, I made that tensioner bracket right there. That manual tensioner bracket, I came up with that design and everything. There was a spring-loaded tensioner on here, and that spring-loaded tensioner was doing nothing but stretching out belts. I had to come up with that mechanism and that T mechanism down there to get more wrap so the belt can be tighter. And you know what I mean? And, you know, I always try to get the belt small, a little smaller, so I can have more stretching room there if I needed it on that. I'm going to end up getting another one of those made. And I'm going back to an electric water pump, as I said. And it won't have a pulley on it at all. So it'll give me more room down there. And guess what? The belt is going to be smaller. And guess what? I'm going to have to figure out what size it is. And the thing is, these auto parts stores don't have parts readily available all the time. Don't y'all get tired of going there and they got to order stuff? They don't even have belts in stock. They have some belts in stock. And you know, these vehicles are all called for a different size belt that these guys make, these companies make. This doesn't call for a certain kind of or size belt. You know, once I find the size, then that's the size that will fit this, because it didn't come this way. Okay? So whenever I went to Advance or Auto or Rallies or one of them, and I had to get 3 or 4 belts at one time, different sizes, to figure out which size was going to fit. And then I would tell them, well, I'm not going to need all these damn belts. I'm not going to keep all these belts. Whatever I find fit, I'm bringing back. And I go to police too. Well, I ran into a problem August of 2021 with O'Reilly's. Okay. Now, before I even talk about this, I was dealing with Napa Auto Parts first with buying belts and pulleys. And the owner that used to own it, his name was Rodney, and he was a race car guy. And he was very patient with me. He understood what I was going through. And all he would say is, don't worry about his soda. If it don't work, just bring it back, buddy. We'll figure out what's going on, man. We'll figure it out. You know what I mean? You can change pulleys, do what you got to do until you figure it out. You know what I mean? But then I ended up going to Advanced Auto Parts and getting Dayco belts. You know what I mean? And granted, Napa sells the Gates belts, but it got Napa's name on it, but it's Gates belts. And I always thought those were better belts. The HD belt, the green belt was stronger. Okay, but I started going to Advance and, trying their stuff out and seeing the belt sizes change. Now, this is the sad story. Let me use this for an example. You got a K06 1251, or just to say there was a K06 1250. Common sense would have you thinking that the next size down is a 1245, then the next size is a 1240, then a 1235, then a 1230, then a 1225, then a 1220, then a 1215, then a 1210. It doesn't work like that. There's a 1251, a 1247, and then the next size down is a 1230. So skip the 1245, the 1240, and the 1235. And then suppose I needed a belt that was in between them. They don't make it because these belts are made for a certain or specific vehicle. You see what I'm saying? Then I'm caught out there in a rock and a hard place, and I gotta either upsize the pulleys from like a 3-inch diameter pulley to a 3.5 diameter pulley and make them all 3.5s, so it can add a half inch more per if I needed, if I didn't have a tight enough belt. Well, in July of 2021, I had pretty much by that time had everything figured out, but I decided to wrap it in a Z configuration to see if it would work better. And there was a smaller belt I needed. I was like, oh, that's great. I'd rather have a smaller belt than a longer belt. And why I'm getting an electric water pump, y'all, is because of this wrap. My water pump is going in reverse rotation and the impellers don't go that way. But it's been kind of working that way, but it gets a little warm under here. Electric water pumps by Mazier moves 35 to 42 gallons per minute. You know what I mean? That's why I want to get one. I figure if I get that water moving and moving in the right direction, it would run cooler. Okay. And this engine's got to move 4 alternators and all of that, so that's probably got a little bit to do with the heat as well. But I was looking for a pulley at O'Reilly's. You see those 2 groove pulleys down there? When it was in the S configuration, the pulley that's on your right side, that has grooves and flanges. I was looking for a smooth one with flanges on the sides of them. A smooth one, that's a groove one. So it would come up and over the smooth one and go up under the groove one. And I didn't know what the part number was or if they even had that pulley. I called O'Reilly's and asked him over the phone. He couldn't find it. And I took some belts back, which I told him what was coming back. And then I just mentioned the pulley, and his manager picks up the catalog, slams it on the counter, and says, "Find it yourself." And when he's walking away, mumbles, "All you're going to do is bring it back anyway." Well, this is the thing. It's my hard-earned money. I'm down here working on this vehicle. They're not. Them guys aren't. I stand for hours cutting hair, so my money's hard-earned. And whatever I spend my money on, if I'm not satisfied or it's not working, I'm going to bring it back. That goes for Amazon, auto parts stores, or anywhere. It's going back. And I felt disrespected. And the first thing that ran through my head was running around that counter and go and put in work on him for disrespecting me, because it don't matter how much money I spend. You know what I mean? When you guys don't want to do your job, all you're doing is typing in parts and ordering parts. They act like working in the auto parts store is doing construction. Okay, like they're carrying big planks, across the yard and in the dead of the winter or summer. You know what I mean? And I have had those clerks, some clerks, admit that, man, it would be nice if we just sat around all day and nobody came in and bought any parts and we got paid anyway. I was like, then the corporate of these auto parts stores will want to know why y'all aren't making any money. They're going to be wanting to know why. And then the district manager is going to come down and find out why there's no money being made. I'm sure of that. Since y'all don't want to work. You know what I mean? But I wanted to run around that counter, and it took everything within me not to do it, because I would have got an assault charge. But I bet you I would have got corporate's attention. Because from what I hear, they just slap the managers on the wrist and be like, "Hey man, take it easy, man." But they would have wanted to know why would have happened. Them, cops, lawyers, judges would have wanted to know. It took everything within me, man, to be a bigger man, and I just walked out of the store, and I've never been back in there since at all. I just never went back. And I figure that manager thinks he got, and his name is Joe, by the way. I figure he thinks he got one up on me, or he was like, "Oh, that was easy." Not really. Because I'm going to be honest with you, man. I'm waiting to see him in some grocery store or some store, and we're going to have a man-to-man, because I'm still mad. I'm still mad about that. I am. And when I see him, we're going to have a man-to-man. Definitely going to have a man-to-man. And if, just suppose one of these auto parts stores don't have a certain part and they got it there, and I just so happen to go back down there to get that part, and he says anything out of context, "Oh, you again," or yada, 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 there's going to be problems, man. Y'all need to teach y'all clerks, man, how to treat people. And I've seen clerks, complain when customers pull up, "Oh man, this dude, I don't like this dude." I'm like, "Why?" "Because he's always this and always that." I'm like, "Yo, man, yeah, sometimes customers are dicks, man. I'm a barber. If a customer's disrespectful or he's narcissistic or they're not happy with what's going on, I'll just tell them straight, man, there's a barber shop around the corner. There's another one up the street. There's another one across the bridge. If you don't like it here, bro, feel free to leave. Period. If you don't like what's going on." I've never went up in them stores and complained. I've always went up in there and tried to get along with them and joked with them, but they don't seem to know there's another side. To everybody, man. I don't like being disrespected, and And while I got a few more minutes on here, okay, I fell out with an advanced auto parts manager before too. Now this was before the incident in O'Reilly's. Okay, there was a hood shock. One of these hood shocks had bent, and all I wanted to do was go in there and exchange it. And that's when I told you the manager was telling other managers, and one of the managers took it to heart. And he was like telling his clerks, "Yeah, I heard he be bringing stuff back and all that. And I know a couple of the guys was like, yo, man, that was back when he was getting carburetors back in 1998, man. I was like, at the time, like 20 years ago, bro. And so they had asked permission if I can bring back a bent hood shock. And he was like, no. But I was like, my receipt says I can bring it back. I got a warranty. So I went back down there and I went straight to him. And I was like, yo, dude, I want to get another hood shock. Here's a receipt that says I can do so. And he started talking to me crazy. And I flipped on him. I was like, yo, man, come on outside, dude. I ain't coming outside. I was like, I didn't think you wanted to come outside. I was like, as long as I got a receipt saying I can exchange a part, then exchange it or give me my money back. You know, and then he started talking some other nonsense and I had to flip more on him. You know what I mean? Like, I flipped on this dude, man. You know what I mean? I was like, I bet you I'll bring back anything that's affected. I'm bringing it back here. I was like, now. You know what I mean? And then sometime later, just a rally. I haven't been back there, man. I haven't been back there. But, and I ain't trying to go back technically, but one day I may have to go back. Let me walk in there. And I hope you people from O'Reilly's is listening. Let me walk back in there. Okay? And dude says something, dude, I'm going to prison. Straight to prison. Straight to prison, dude. I'm in there spending my hard-earned money. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm in there spending my hard-earned money. And whenever you take your car to a mechanic, the customer has to pay for those parts that the mechanics buy. It's the customer's money, so it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We're buying our own parts. It's called tweaking. Y'all should have more patience with cats that's doing modified work like this when it comes to stuff like this. Because this parts is not going to work. Y'all should be more patient. Is what y'all should be. And do your job. And quit talking behind people's backs. I asked the one people at Advance that was talking behind people's back. I remember I was like, y'all probably talk behind my back when I'm not here, don't you? No. I was like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, y'all do. I was like, I just haven't caught y'all yet. Yes, y'all do. Do your job. Order parts and return parts. That's your job. You know what I mean? I understand if a customer comes in here and gives you a hard time. I can understand that. I said, but everybody that pulls up, y'all don't like them. Everybody that pulls up, I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like her. This dude gets on my nerves. I was like, I think you get on their nerves too. Do your job. Man, it's sad that some people work in auto parts stores and know nothing about cars. Like that last manager at Advance I told you that I offered outside, he admitted that he knew nothing about cars. What the hell are you a manager in an auto parts store for? That's like me being an engineer but know nothing about engineering. It's like me being a barber for 44 years and know nothing about cutting hair. And they're out there. They're out there. Trust and believe. There's mechanics out there that know nothing about fixing cars. There's barbers that don't know how to cut hair. And beauticians that don't know how to do hair exactly. They're out there. They're out there. But this is, I know I'm not the only one that goes through this, man, but that's just to, give y'all a little insight. Some people's entertained with these tutorials I do because I don't hold nothing back. They know I'm serious about what I say. You know what I mean? And I hate going through this with people, dude. I just mind my own business, work my ass off, and spend my hard-earned money. You know what I mean? Wait till y'all find out how much I spent at Amazon. Like, I got 3,400 and something movies. I collect movies. And between Amazon, Prime, Tubi, Netflix, if you add them all up, it's 3,400 and some change. Okay, it's in my phone. All right, and a lot of those movies I paid for from Amazon since I started buying movies in 2017, but I started buying stuff from Amazon, period, 2012. And I added it all up. They're all organized. How much money I spent on just movies and just accessories from Amazon, whether it be clothes, whether it be auto parts, whether it be audio equipment, or any of that. You know what I mean? And it's just like car audio, man. All you car audio guys know that it's tweaking your box. Tweaking your amps. Tweaking. Y'all know what tweaking is and how much tweaking costs. Y'all know. Y'all know. Tweaking. Y'all know. Alright, y'all, just needed to get that one out, man. And I got it out in a half an hour. You know, Facebook, after 30 minutes, the sound usually goes out on the video. Alright. Soda Pop Kid, OG Soda Pop Kid. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, people.